Noah Epstein, are you here? To introduce the one Amuta that will be speaking with us and presenting their activities.
Thank you very much, Baruch. Baruch, by the way, is with us from the beginning, 11 years, and he's doing a great job. Please give him a hand. One-man show, really unbelievable. My day job is I'm the vice president of the University of Haifa, and I'm very proud to be here tonight. I'll speak very briefly, not as fast as the last Canadian spoke, but I will try my best. Okay, I'm going to introduce you to Value Sports, Shachar Rubinstein. Value Sports aims to strengthen the values of Israeli society by teaching children and youth sportsmanship, ethics and character building through sports. The passion children and youth have for sports and its educational opportunities make sport a significant educational tool. To date, thousands of children play sports, and Value Sports aims to make sure those children receive educational values as well as professional training. By doing so, sports will become the most effective informal education framework in Israel. Shachar Rubinstein is the co-founder and general manager of Value Sports. In his past, he was a former director of the Acharai project in Jerusalem district, preparing youth for the army service, and an officer in the elite army unit in the IDF. Shachar graduated from the Hebrew University in Jerusalem with a BA in Jewish Studies and an MA in Jewish philosophy. He also graduated another MA in Educational Management. Shachar, please.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. For me, I'm quite excited to be here, and I found it a very special opportunity for me to tell about our activity. My name is Shachar Rubinstein. I'm living in the south, near to Ashkelon, and I'm a founder and CEO of a non-profit organization which called Value Sports. Like Amos was said, our aim is to strengthen Israel's values by using the sport as a tool, not only for the professional side, but also for values and education. I want to share with you two scenes that are two milestones of our path in Value Sports. The first one was just after I finished my army service as an officer. I felt very worried about the future of our society, and I became a teacher. I went to the school and I started to be a teacher for history and Bible. After a few months, I felt that the influence of teacher is very limited. I went, one of my students didn't come to school, so I went to look for him, and he was playing soccer in Beitar Yerushalayim, which, as you know, it's not so educational place. But I went to speak to his coach, and I told him, you know, this student is not coming to school. And he just called to this student and whispered something in his ear. And after a few days, he became the great student. Just tell him you won't play if you won't come to school, and that's it. And after that, I met Larry Rubin. He's the founder and the chairman of our board today. And together with Doron Sheffer, the player, we built Value Sports. The second scene that I want to share with you, it was after 1 year that we done our pilot, I met the crew of Tmura. And actually we didn't really knew what we are going to do. We were after 1 year of a pilot, but how to help a sports organization to become an educational organization, we didn't really knew. But Moss and all the crew just tell us, you have a good idea. We trust you. We believe in you. And I want to thank you for believing in us. And I want to thank you all the partners, to believe in us, that we can really make a change. Thank you very much, and have a good evening.
Noah, last chance. Okay, Noah Epstein was supposed to be joining us for Meet, which I think several people here are familiar with. If she comes before we're finished, maybe we'll try and give her a minute. But Chaim, if you please.
ערב טוב. I got a special permission from the ambassador to speak in Hebrew. If anyone needs online translation, please let me know. אז אני אדבר בעברית קצת, ואחר כך אולי נשלב אנגלית, ובכל מקרה זה לא יהיה ארוך. התעשייה הטכנולוגית הישראלית היא כמובן פנומנה מדהימה. אנחנו כולנו גאים בה, כולכם חלק ממנה. היא מהווה 15% מהתוצר הישראלי, והיא מהווה כ-40% מהייצוא הישראלי, והיא תורמת למאזן התשלומים, והיא מייצרת כ-200,000 מקומות עבודה, והיא באמת מקור לגאווה. אין הרבה דברים שהיום כשישראלי מסתובב בחוץ, מחזיק את הסטארט-אפ ניישן ומאוד גאה בה. אבל יש בעיה אחת, בתור מי שהיה כמעט 30 שנה בתעשייה, לא סופר את השנתיים בממשלה, יש לה אולי מאפיין אחד שהוא קצת בעייתי, היא דורשת מכולכם או מכולנו, כל מי שעוסק בה, המון מאמץ, אנרגיה וזמן. ובעצם כמעט סוחטת את כולם בצורה כזאת שאנחנו עסוקים בגיוסים ובראונד A ובראונד B ובראונד C ולמצוא את הלקוח הראשון והשני והשלישי ולנסוע לשדה ולפגוש לקוחות ולטפל בגרוס מרג'ן, וכמעט ולא נשאר זמן לראות מה קורה מסביב. אתה לא באמת מחובר עם התעשייה הזאת למציאות הישראלית. אתה לא מחובר, יש כאלה שרואים בזה יתרונות, יש כאלה שרואים בזה חסרונות, אבל בסך הכל אפשר לחיות בתעשייה הזאת בבועה לא רעה לגמרי. ויצא לי, בין היתר, לא מעט להתמודד בעצמי עם השאלה הזאת, מה עושים. וחלק הולכים לצבוע את המתנ"ס המקומי, וחלק מוטרד מהנושא הזה אבל לא עושה הרבה, ולפעמים יש כאלה שאפילו הולכים לעבוד בממשלה לאיזושהי תקופה. אבל בסך הכל לכולן בתעשייה יש את הדילמה הזאת, מה עושים, איך תורמים ואיך משתלבים קצת יותר עם הקהילה, למרות העיסוק המאוד אינטנסיבי בביזנס ובתחרות הגלובלית האכזרית. ולכן, ממה שאני מבין ומה ששמעתי על תמורה, אני חושב שזו דרך מדהימה לקחת את כל האנרגיות ואת כל ההצלחות ואת כל מה שאתם עושים, וכתוצאה מזה בכל זאת גם לתרום לקהילה מסביב, ולדעת שגם אם השפעתם בקצת, ההצלחה שלכם יכולה להיות נחלה של הכלל. אני חושב שהיוזמה הזאת היא יוזמה יוצאת מן הכלל. אני מאוד מקווה שהיא תמשיך להצליח, אני בטוח שהיא תמשיך להצליח, וברכותיי כמובן על 1.5 מיליון מווייז. זה הישג מאוד יפה. לצערי הרב, השגרירות, ישראל UK הייטק האב, לא השקיעה בווייז, אין לה את 1.5 מיליון משם, אבל יש לה, בעקבות יוזמה שאני אספר לכם עליה, הרבה מאוד רצון ויכולת, ואני חושב שגם תוצאות, לתרום ולתמוך בתעשייה הישראלית וכמובן האנגלית. It all started by a letter from Prime Minister David Cameron, a letter that I have a feeling that Ambassador Matthew Gould helped create somehow. It all started by a letter from Prime Minister David Cameron to Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu, saying that the United Kingdom would like to collaborate and cooperate with Israel in the field of high-tech and to establish special relationship in this specific area. And as you know, we have many friends in the world, but unfortunately we don't have many friends that really want to cooperate with us. So once Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu have seen the letter, he actually sent it to me. I was back then in the Ministry of Finance and said, okay, Chaim, sounds great idea, do something about it. I didn't have the opportunity to do much about it when I was still in post, but Ambassador Gould approached me and proposed that I will lead this initiative as a non-executive chairman. This is a great initiative. ואני יודע שיש הרבה אנשים ששואלים, אוקיי, שמענו, הבנו שיש את ה-UK Israel Tech Hub, אבל מה זה באמת? בעצם המטרה המרכזית, כמו שאמרתי, זה ליצור שיתוף פעולה בין הכלכלות הישראלית והאנגלית בתחומי הטכנולוגיה. עכשיו, רובכם חושבים כמובן באופן טבעי על אמריקה. יש נסדק, יש גוגל, מייקרוסופט, אינטל, מוטורולה. סליחה, מה הקשר לאנגליה? אז זה ככה מה שחושבים בהתחלה. אבל אחרי שמתעמקים, והצוות שמובל ומנוהל על ידי נעמי קריגר, איפה את נעמי? ישב וחשב ככה, בוא נראה מה ניתן לעשות ואיך ניתן לייצר שיתופי פעולה בין הכלכלות מעבר לדברים שהם obvious ומעבר למה שאולי יכול לקרות, כי כל אחד יכול לקחת מטוס ולטוס לטרמינל 4 או טרמינל 5. כולנו היו באנגליה, מכירים את הביג בן. וכשהתחלנו לבדוק, התברר שיש פוטנציאל משמעותי בתחומים רבים. תחום אחד כמובן התחום של המדיה, קונטנט, קריאייטיב, אינטרנט. יש באנגליה תעשייה שלמה, ריטייל. מי מכם לא שמע על מרקס אנד ספנסר ועל ג'ון לואיס והרוץ וכדומה? אלה תעשיות גדולות. הם לא כמו אינטל וגוגל, אבל יש להם צרכים משמעותיים בטכנולוגיה, טכנולוגיה של ביזנס אינטליג'נט וביג דאטה ואינטרנט, ולא תמיד חושבים עליהם כמקום שכשאתה הולך ומחפש את הלקוח הראשון, את המקום לפנות אליו ולייצר את הבסיס שלך מחוץ לישראל, לטובת דיסטריביושן או פרטנרשיפ, לא תמיד חושבים על אנגליה. אז זה תחום אחד שהוא תחום משמעותי. תחום נוסף שזיהינו, זה תחום של שיתופי פעולה בתחום האנג'ינירינג. חברות אנגליות משמעותיות יצרו בסיסים חזקים בהרבה מדינות בעולם, חברות הנדסה, והן יכולות לתת פלטפורמה לכל הסטארט-אפים שעוסקים פה בקלינטק וגרינטק וגרין טכנולוגי, כל החברות הקטנות האלה שצריכות דיסטריביושן ושיתופי פעולה ביחד לפנות למדינות נוספות שלאנגליה יש שם פרזנס משמעותי. מה שאני מתאר זה לא תיאוריה. את הדברים האלה כבר התחלנו לבצע. יצאנו עם משלחת של 18 סטארט-אפים מתוך 150 שפנו לתחרות שביצענו, תחת הכותרת Tech Exchange, והסטארט-אפים האלה היו בלונדון, נפגשו עם משקיעים, נפגשו עם הוורג'ן של העולם, והוודאפון ואחרים, וכתוצאה מזה התחילו שיתופי פעולה, ומרקס אנד ספנסר ושופ דיירקט ואחרים היו בארץ רק לפני מספר שבועות, כחלק מהביצוע של האסטרטגיה, ונפגשו עם עשרות חברות ישראליות, כדוגמה. אחת מחברות האנג'ינירינג האנגליות הגדולות בשם ארו, אירחה משלחת של ווטר משמעותית באנגליה, וכתוצאה מזה הגיעה לישראל, יצרה שיתופי פעולה, וכרגע הם עושים בידינג לכמה פרויקטים מחוץ לאנגליה, אחד מהם יחד עם מקורות בפולין כדוגמה. אז זה לא רק אסטרטגיה, זה לא רק תיאוריה, אלא יש צוות שלוקח ומנסה ליישם אותה עם דברים פרקטיים בשטח. המגזר הערבי, חמי נמצא פה, אני יודע שזה נושא שיקר ללב רבים מכם, איך מפתחים את המגזר הערבי, יש התחלות של סטארט-אפים בתחום הזה, וזה נושא שבעבודה חכמה עם פאבלישרס אנגליים ניתן לנצל את הקשרים ואת הדיסטריביושן שיש באנגליה למדינות הגולף ולמדינות אחרות בשיתופי פעולה קונקרטיים בין סטארט-אפים ישראלים בתחום הקונטנט שירצו להשתמש באנגליה כבסיס לדיסטריביושן לעולם הערבי. שוב, לא תיאוריה, בשבוע שעבר או לפני שבועיים הייתה משלחת קטנה של מספר סטארט-אפים שאנחנו זיהינו בתחום, נפגשו עם פאבלישרס בלונדון, ויש כרגע עבודה ושיתופי פעולה לטובת הדבר הזה. נושא של שיתופי פעולה בין ממשלות בתחום ה-IT, גם זה נושא, אני יודע, ממשלת ישראל שמה על זה דגש, יש לה CIO ממשלתי, גם באנגליה שמים על הנושא הזה דגש, שיתופי פעולה כדי לא להמציא את הגלגל מחדש, ולעזור לחברות קטנות בתחום הטכנולוגיה, הוא נושא שיכול לייצר שיתופי פעולה בין המדינות. ואחרון חביב כמובן בתחום ה-Life Science, בתחום של נושא של בדיקות, הרבה חברות בתחום ה-Medical Device יוצאות לניסויים קליניים במדינות שונות. באנגליה יש תשתית מצוינת מצד אחד, מצד שני יש חברות פארמה גדולות כמו GSK ואסטרזניקה שאין להם מרכזים בישראל, אין להם פעילות בישראל, סיפרנו להם על היכולות שיש כאן בארץ והם הגיעו לכאן ומתחילים עכשיו שיתופי פעולה עם האקדמיה על מנת לייצר שיתופי פעולה קונקרטיים. אז זה מה שההאב עושה, הוא אמור לייצר שיתופי פעולה קונקרטיים כדי שייצרו בסך הכל תוצאות ופיתוח כלכלי, וזה הדבר המיוחד בשתי המדינות, גם באנגליה וגם בישראל. זה לא מדינה אחת מוכרת לשנייה, אלא נסה לייצר שיתופי פעולה כדי שתהיה צמיחה כלכלית ביחד. זה מודל ייחודי שמקבל היום הרבה מאוד attention גם באנגליה מבחינת מודל כלכלי. I would like to finish and saying this is a small team. This team obviously needs a lot of support. It works with the business community both here in Israel and in the UK. Obviously works within with the teams in the embassy, with UKTI and other government organizations, again here in Israel. And as you, Tmura, have demonstrated, your success is based on cooperation with the industry. The Israel-UK Tech Hub follows the same line of working, cooperating with many stakeholders in order to create good for both economies and both countries. I wish you a lot of success in this venture. Unfortunately, I have to take a flight to California in order to help an Israeli startup. Maybe we'll do an exit, and maybe there will be some money for Tmura. So I have to fly. So I will not be able to attend the rest of the evening. But I would like to invite Ambassador Matthew Gold, who asked me not to introduce him. So I follow your instructions.
תודה חיים, כמו תמיד, אתה ממש נחמד. We'll miss you. להתראות. ערב טוב לכולם. אני שמח מאוד להיות פה איתכם. הפרויקט הזה ממש חשוב, לא רק לישראל, אבל לכל העולם. ואני אגיד למה. ועכשיו אני צריך להמשיך באנגלית, אני מצטער. It's a genuine pleasure to host Tmura this evening. And I really do want to explain why. Because for us, for the embassy, for the Tech Hub, for the UK, it's an honor to have an association with you. The story of Israel's tech innovation, startup nation, I think is now beginning to be well known around the world, and huge exits like Waze and books like Startup Nation, these are starting to have an impact. And Chaim spoke more eloquently than I could have, certainly in Ivrit, about what the UK and the Tech Hub are doing to try and use that and forge a partnership with that to the benefit of both countries. But I've been struck, since I've been in Israel, that the innovation is not only in technology, that there is another whole chapter of innovation that goes on that's just as impressive, and that's in the field of social policy. And I have been endlessly surprised by organizations like the one we heard from just before, doing absolutely wonderful and innovative things that can have an impact not just in Israel, but all over the world. I'm constantly amazed by the individuals I meet, from the top to the bottom of the country, in every community, who are innovating, doing hugely exciting things to improve Israeli society. I'm constantly impressed by the ideas that I see, that people are trying out and experimenting to make their country, their society, their community a better place. And for me, the excitement of Tmura is it brings together these two elements of innovation, the social innovation and the tech innovation. And by doing so, create something wonderful, something incredibly powerful. Everyone's heard of Waze. You mentioned Waze earlier. Waze, for me, is an absolute model of Israeli innovation. When I arrived here, nobody had heard of it. Nobody was talking about it. And yet, a couple of weeks ago, when we had an event and for some reason Waze wasn't working. Half the people who were meant to be coming couldn't even find their way here. I'm constantly struck at the innovation, and to find a way of bringing together that economic and social innovation, I think is very special. It's an honor for me as well to introduce Sir Ronald Cohen, our keynote speaker for the evening, because just like Tmura, Sir Ronald brings together those two strands of innovation. He has been an absolute giant of the business world, both here and in the UK, and his contribution to both our economies, I think, is very well known. But he is also a remarkable, clear and powerful voice on social policy and social innovation. And I know that successive British Prime Ministers have come to rely very heavily on his advice and his ideas and his ability to get things done. And as well as being this giant of business, giant of social policy, he also has a really exceptional personal record of leadership and generosity. Now, there are two things that I can say that I think are the most important for me about him. The first is that Celia and I are really proud to know him as a friend. And the second is this, that the British Jewish community, like every Jewish community, doesn't agree on anything. And there is nobody who everyone in the Jewish community would subscribe to as being, this is someone we think is great, other than Sir Ronald. And he is unique in that the entire community, from top to bottom, has nothing but enormous respect and admiration for what he says, what he does, and who he is. So we're very lucky to have him as our guest speaker. Sir Ronald.
שלום לכולם, זה תענוג וגם כבוד בשבילי להיות פה איתכם. Matthew, I don't know quite how to take all of these compliments, but they certainly raise the bar as far as my speech is concerned. Anyway, I shall do my best, but I would like to start by thanking Matthew and thanking Celia. It's not a coincidence that this event is held at the residence of the British ambassador, because Matthew's definition of his role as an ambassador is a lot broader than the regular definition. And what you have done to bring Britain and Israel together in the fields of life sciences, in the field of IT, and now in the field of social investment has been just unbelievably valuable. And I'd like all of you to join me in thanking Matthew. And if there's one thing that the Jewish community in London can agree on, it's not that I did all the things, it's that Matthew is the best ambassador we've had. Now, I'll continue in English if you don't mind, but I want to talk first of all about Tmura and Yadin's efforts and the efforts of those of you who have led Tmura. When I first heard about Tmura in 2002, I thought it was a great idea that should be replicated everywhere in the world, that there is tech entrepreneurship or any entrepreneurship. And it's unbelievable, really, that 10, 11 years later, you've got 300 companies that have given options on their shares, and you've already raised $9 million. And I think you've reached the stage now where this is going to be copied everywhere. And it'll be a great compliment to your ingenuity, but also to your social conscience and your attempts to improve the lives of people who are less well off than we are. What I would like to spend a few moments on is social entrepreneurship and investment. You are business entrepreneurs and venture capitalists, and you have taken an important step in raising philanthropic money in order to help organizations like the one that has just spoken to try to improve other people's lives. But if we look at what philanthropy, traditional philanthropy, has been able to achieve over more than 100 years, it has undoubtedly achieved very great things, but it has also within it the seeds of constraints on growth and the scalability and the innovation that should go with a field where the issues are massive. We don't need in Israel to dwell for long on the fact that as the standard of living rises, the gap between rich and poor gets bigger and bigger instead of smaller and smaller. We don't need to dwell on the fact that somebody who's born into a family where both parents are unemployed and have a drug habit doesn't really have equality of opportunity. And what we've begun to realize is that philanthropy tried to find a solution from the mid-19th century to about the 1930s. In the 1930s, government began to get involved, and by 1942 we had the Beveridge Report in the UK, which talked about the welfare state, and there was a hope that the welfare state would actually be able to deal with social issues in a much more effective way. And 75 years later, or 71 years later, what do we see? We see that governments are out of cash and out of breath on social issues everywhere in the world, in the UK, in the United States, in Israel, everywhere else. And I began to look at this phenomenon 12 years ago when I was asked to chair a task force in the UK called the Social Investment Task Force. And in 2000, we began to look at it, and I realized something that should have been very obvious to me. And that is that there's no part of the capitalist system, really, that deals with the social consequences of the system. The financial consequences, you can see through this crisis, are dealt with rather rudely. The business consequences are dealt with through cycles. But the social consequences aren't dealt with by any powerful part of the system. And yet, between the public sector and the private sector is a social sector of people who devote their lives to improving the lives of others. In the United States, there are 9 million of them. In the UK, 850,000 of them. Across Europe, there are 11 million of them. In Israel, I'm trying to get the exact number, but there's certainly hundreds of thousands of people who are working for not-for-profits in Israel. And the question that I ask myself, and that you will ask yourselves, is how is it that the whole sector is out of money when there are in the UK 100 billion pounds of capital in charitable foundations, in the United States $750 billion in charitable foundations? How is it that nobody has any money and that very few organizations tackling social issues have achieved any type of scale? And we know the answer, because when we give money philanthropically, perhaps not Tmura, perhaps that's the exception, but when we give money philanthropically, typically we say, as a sanity check, I'll give you money for 2 or 3 years, then go raise it somewhere else, and please don't spend any on your overheads. Now, if somebody came to us as venture capitalists or to the entrepreneurs in this room who've built up companies and said, this is my model for building up a firm, I'm not going to spend anything on my overheads, you would show them the door. But that has happened. Now the question is, the deeper question is, why has philanthropy not evolved? And the answer came to me with the development of the social impact bond, which was developed in the UK 3 years ago. And it was the result of a long effort to investigate these types of issues and to release unclaimed assets from banks. We've now received at Big Society Capital, which is a social investment bank that I chair, more than 400 million pounds of unclaimed assets, bank accounts that have been separated from their owners for 15 years or more. And banks have added 200 million to that. So I chair today in the UK a social investment bank with 600 million pounds, $1 billion of capital. Part of the reason is that the social impact bond began to show a way forward that was even different than that which Bridges Ventures, which was created in the same year as Tmura and which invests only in the poorest parts of Britain, the way that Bridges had shown. Bridges had shown that by investing in the poorest 25% of Britain, you can still deliver 15% net returns. Some of you will smile and say, well, that may even be better than tech venture investing has delivered. But what the social impact bond did was the result of bringing people who had social sector experience and financial experience together in the same organization. And we went to the British government in March of 2010 and we said, look, you, like every other country, have a major problem with young prisoners. Most of you will know that roughly 2/3 of prisoners under the age of 21, when they are released, reoffend within 1 year of their release, everywhere in the world, here, in the United States, in the UK, across Europe. We said to the government, look, we will